All right, perfect. I'm Marissa.
I'm Michelle.
And we are interviewing Marianne for our Foundations project. All right. So our first question is, who are you? What's your name? And what have you done?
My name is Marianne Nicholson, and I have done so many things. We are not going to have time to talk about them all. So, what would you like to know?
So throughout your career, have you done different occupations? Have you kind of switched around? Was there something you were doing for most of your career?
Yes. Okay. I started out after high school becoming a paralegal and worked for a few years at that. And then I went into human resources and office management. And then I decided I couldn't stand being in offices, and I got into outside sales. And so sales was the majority of my career. And doing outside sales, I worked for in various industries for various companies. I was usually a 1099 employee, which or a 1099 contractor, which means that I wasn't really an employee of the company. I was an independent, and I had to pay my own quarterly taxes, and I didn't really get any benefits. So that kind of stunk, but I had more freedom and flexibility. I was able to work from home. I was able to make my own hours and call my own shots. And I am somebody who likes to do that. So
Did you have to go to college for that?
so I went to, after business, the first thing I did was go to business school. And then after business school, I got my bachelor's degree in psychology. I worked in some fields in psychology, felt like I wasn't going to be able to make any money. And so that's why I went in. I did get my degree. Then I decided to go into sales because there was a lot more money in sales than working with emotionally disturbed adolescents and and group homes and things like that I did. So of course I've still worked with emotionally disturbed adolescents all my life, but not for pay. And then and then I went into sales because that's how I started making money. And in sales, I was a manufacturer sales rep in the gift and party business. I worked in specialty advertising sales. I always worked in real estate. I had a real estate license since I was 23. That was kind of on the back burner with, other things that I was doing. And then I got into career consulting, career and educational consulting. And eventually, so, the big chunk of my career was in sales. And then eventually I got into academia, and I've taught, and I've worked as a tutor, and I've done admissions counseling and things like that. And right now I am an enrollment outreach specialist at Virginia Wesleyan University.
What did you tutor in?
Hello?
Can you hear
Are we
us?
stuck? What?
Can you hear us?
Okay, we were frozen there for a little bit. Yes, now I can.
I just asked, what did you tutor in?
I was an Avid tutor. Avid is a program. I don't know that New Jersey, in your area, that you've ever even heard of it, but it's a nationwide program for college and career readiness for junior high and high school students. So it's based on it's like a cohort learning and discussion around reading and investigating. It's RICOR, RICOR, reading and investigation, communication, organization, and writing, I guess, was the last one. And so I would facilitate these groups in various junior high and high school classrooms. I would travel around to the different classes and schools. And so it was a way to get students ready for a career, because when you're in a career these days, especially, everything is in cohorts. Everything is teams, working in teams and problem solving in groups together, um, brainstorming solutions, things like that. So you have to know how to speak and present your ideas and work with other people and ask questions. And those are all the kinds of things that we promoted in that program.
That's really cool. So out of all of the things that you have done over the course of your life, which job did you feel the most passionate about?
You keep freezing.
Uh-oh.
Can you hear me?
Okay, so you were freezing, but you said which one of the things that I did was the most
Passionate about.
that I was most passionate about. So there were two different directions, because one thing I failed to mention in what I did, and it was a big chunk of what I did too, but I ended up getting my master's degree in nutrition, and I had a holistic health practice. And that because I was a massage therapist, nationally certified. I got the master's degree in nutrition, and I had the psychology undergraduate degree. So I did a body, mind, spirit holistic health practice. And it was shorter lived than I would have liked, but got disrupted by my meeting Don and having Ryan, because I had only finished the MS program in Connecticut at the age of 35. And I met Don when I was 40, and then, moved to Hawaii and stuff. So it kind of disrupted my practice, but I was very, very passionate about holistic health and nutrition and psychology as I used it in a counseling practice with, overall wellness. I kind of combined all of those things in a wellness practice. And I was very, very passionate about that. I used to be a seminar junkie all my life, and, starting in my teens. And so even when I was going to school for psychology and everything, I was in all these seminars. So even though I never got a graduate degree in psychology where I could have opened up my own psychology practice, counseling practice, I did it in other ways by doing life coaching and wellness coaching and nutritional counseling, and working with massage therapy and everything. And so my passion has always been helping people to improve the quality of their lives. And I've done that on every level. Now, in some of the other sales jobs that were in the career and educational counseling venue, my favorite job was working as a career and educational consultant for Verizon employees. Again, I wasn't employed by Verizon. I was employed by a consulting firm. I was a 1099 contractor again, but I went around to all the different Verizon sites, and I helped employees figure out how to use their educational benefits that they got from the company. And it was at the time when the old Ma Bell was becoming Verizon. And so a lot of the workers were really paranoid about losing their jobs because they didn't know what was going to happen. And the thing is that Verizon employees were so overpaid for what they did. They were never going to be able to find jobs that, out of that setting that paid them what they were getting. So my job was to help them discover how to translate their skills for what they were doing to something that would be more generalized, so that when they went on interviews and everything, they could, because they were like, they would say to me, I only do this, and it's this highly technical thing. And so I would have to help them figure out how to generalize their knowledge and their abilities and their overall experience. And sometimes we had to talk about going in whole new directions. And I really loved that because I would do these values clarification games with them. And I did a lot of personality profiles, and interest inventories and things like that. And then I would just sit and talk to them and say, well, what did you like to do when you were a kid? What came naturally to you? What did other people say to you you were really good at? Because a lot of times we overlook those things. I was a really good, I could always speak and write and communicate, and I was really good with English and grammar and all of that. And I just took it for granted, but I would have been a great journalist, but I never really thought about doing that because it was just something that came naturally to me. So that was a lot of fun. I really, really liked that. And I got a lot of accolades from the people doing that. In fact, they told me that they wished that I could have done this for their kids, because the guidance counselors at the high school level usually stink and and aren't helpful at all. And so they said, I wish I could bring my kid to you.
Would you change anything about how you turned out now? Would you change anything about?
Well, I really like I really like who I am now. And, I've made peace with myself. I was quite angry at myself for a lot of my life because I really didn't necessarily follow the things that I wanted to do because I'm such a people pleaser. I was always worried about what everybody else wanted, especially my family, and, what everybody else thought. And I wanted to be an actress and a singer, and that was taboo in my old world Italian family. From my father's perspective, he wouldn't even let me go away to school for that. And I was expected to be a teacher, but I really didn't want to, I really didn't, at that time, I didn't like little kids too much. And and if I was going to be a teacher, I figured I'd be a college teacher, which I did become eventually. But that was short-lived because I realized that I was correct in my perception as a 20-year-old that I wouldn't really like teaching. I like counseling, but to do teaching and be repetitive every day and everything else, I didn't really like that. So yeah, I had a lot of disappointment and anger, and I didn't stay with things. Like I am a learning junkie. I'm an information junkie. But once I learned things, I didn't feel any need to prove anything with it. So I changed jobs a lot because every job pigeonholes you and you get bored. And I have ADHD and I love to learn, and I get very quickly bored. I learn very fast, and I always want to be doing something different and new. So I think for me, probably being some kind of a researcher or something like that would have been the best, because then I could have just constantly been researching and learning everything I wanted to know and getting paid for it. So, yeah, it's taken a while to, come to terms with myself and my life.
You kind of already answered my next question, but did you ever feel any pressure from people around you, your family, friends at any point in your life?
Absolutely, because as I said, I was a people pleaser and I got involved with relationships, and instead of putting what I wanted first in my life, to take care of me and build my future the way I wanted it to be, I almost always defaulted to what the other person in my life needed or wanted. Like, for instance, because my father wouldn't let me go away to performing arts school, I got married at 19 years old to get out of the house because he wouldn't even sign financial aid papers. Okay. And so then I had to do everything the hard way. But the first thing I did when I was married was I put my husband through school before I put me through school. And by the time I put me through school, we got divorced. So then I was all on my own and had to do everything by and for myself and pay for it all. Yeah, so I've learned something later in life that my sister once said something to me. She said, Marianne, I learned a long time ago not to care about what anybody thinks of me. And I should have learned that when I was your age. But of course, when you're a young adult, you very much care what everybody thinks of you. That's why everybody is so awkward and self-conscious and, and struggles in that way. And now I don't really care. So, but now it's, now I would love to start my life over again, knowing what I know. And well, the world is also different because like you guys you could have anything you want. You could have anything you want if you put your mind to it and, use persistence and everything. But when I was your age, I mean, the women's lib movement had just started. I had this old world Italian father. I was supposed to be a wife and a mother. He used to say things to me like, when are you going to give up this college crap and get married and settle down? And, that's the kind of non-support that I ever had. And the only thing that I was really allowed to become, if I, first of all, was a wife and a mother, which didn't happen for decades. Secondly, was a teacher. And thirdly, was maybe a nurse. But I didn't have the broad opportunity. And it isn't that it didn't exist. It just didn't exist in my family. And it was just starting to exist for women in general at that time. That time was the time of like when AT&T came to New Jersey, and you had to be a little clone wearing blue suits, whether you were a woman or a man. So the women who broke into that business did very well, but they were little clones, little business clones. And I am too much of an individual to ever be a clone of anything or anybody. So I didn't go in that direction. Now, those people ended up retiring after 25 or 30 years with fabulous pensions and things like that. And I have no pension. I have no benefits, whatever. But I did my own thing, so.
So our last question is, what would your final words be for people who are trying to figure out what they want to do with life, who have no idea what they want to do?
Big uncertainty.
Yeah. You have to really keep an open mind. You have to know at least who you are, not necessarily what you want, but you have to know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and what your values are. And for instance, when I used to do that values clarification game with the Verizon employees, the game went a little bit like this. So there's money and time and family and relationships and travel and, all these different aspects of life, right? So I would tell the people they had to put them in order of priority to them. And then it got more specific, like, okay, if you want to make money, are you willing to give up time with your family? It got down to smaller and smaller levels of clarification and detail, because everybody wants to be rich, but, rich and successful. but what are you going to give up to be rich and successful? Because you can't be rich and successful necessarily. Like, you can't really have it all. People think they can have it all, but you really can't, because something always suffers. And so if your priority is time with your family, then the career that you choose, you have to choose carefully that will allow that. When I was a paralegal, I was working with all these lawyers who were just, I mean, they were workaholics. I worked a day job in real estate, paralegal for a law firm. And then I worked at night for estate planning attorneys. And these young attorneys were in the law library till 1, 2 in the morning. And, you know, if you think you're going to have a family and enjoy them in that kind of a career, it's most likely not going to happen, especially if you're ambitious and you want to become a partner someday. That's just the reality of life. Hold on. Okay, you get to see my crazy psychedelic room while I'm.
There we go.
Wait a minute, because this thing isn't like really a real. Okay, there we go.
Okay, perfect.
So, you know, and really, honestly, I don't think a lot of people ever think about this aspect of life choices, because and I had a hard time making choices for this very reason, because every choice that you make, you're giving up a ton of other choices. And that always used to bother me, because I wanted to do everything and I wanted to have it all and do it all. And, you know, which is why my life has been so checkerboard and, you know, crazy. But I learned a lot, you know, became very informed about a lot of things. But, you know, very few people, and this is something that I really feel strongly about, that should be taught in high school. In addition to the interest inventories that they give you, you know, the guidance counselors give you to see, like, okay, you know, answer all these questions and what would be your best, what does that amount to? That would be, you know, you would be good in these professions. But that's so limited and so shallow, because what's really important underneath that is who you are, who you want to be, who you aspire to be, but not just in a career sense, but in a very personal sense, you know? And then other factors that go into the values thing too. Do you like working with your hands? Are you more of a head person or a hand person? Do you like the outdoors, or do you want to be indoors? Do you want to sit behind a desk, or do you want to be, actively doing things? What kind of people do you want to be around for your life? Like what kind of people are you attracted to most? I mean, are you somebody who likes to spend all your time by yourself, and just doing your own thing, or doing research or reading or something? Well, that's very different than the professions where you're going to have to be in an environment with a lot of people and constantly interacting. Some people give you energy and some people take away your energy. And you have to know what kind of a person you are. Like when you're out in a social setting, do you tend to get tired or do you tend to get energized? Like I'm a person who gets energized by people, but there's many people I know who can only take people for, a few minutes here and there, for so long, and then they just start to feel depleted. And so the environment of work that you choose is really, really important. You just have to know, you have to be true to yourself, and you have to kind of figure out what's really important to you. Hello.
Hello. All
Does
right,
that
well,
make,
that's a lot
does that
of
make sense?
yeah, that's a
Yes.
lot of really great advice.
Yeah, well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So do what I just said for yourselves, because if you don't, you might really go in the wrong direction. Now, the other caveat